올바른 연금을 위한 현명한 선택, 경남은행 연금 내비게이터와 함께하세요. 안녕하세요. BNK경남은행 TV 구독자 여러분, 연금 내비게이터 이화선입니다. 연금 투자자라면 반드시 알아야 되는 TDF. TDF의 본 고장이라고 불리우는 미국에 본사를 두고 있는 디멘셔널 펀드 어드바이저의 아시아 기관 대표님을 모시고 이야기를 나눠보도록 하겠습니다. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. 만나서 반갑습니다. 구독자분들께 인사 한번 부탁드리겠습니다.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing me to Kunyon 안녕하세요. It's very nice to be here. So my name is Abi Shroff. I represent our Asia business for Dimensional Fund Advisors, or DFA. And as part of Asia, Korea is one of our most important markets. So I'm very glad to be here. In fact, I'm here quite regularly. I currently live in Singapore for the past 15 years. And over the years, I've had many chances to come to Korea. And one fun fact is my children's favorite food is actually Korean food. So every time I'm here, they ask me to bring back some Korean snacks.
회사 소개 한번 부탁드려도 될까요?
Yes. So Dimensional was actually formed about 42 years ago. It's based in Austin, Texas. And the firm's founder and current chairman, David Booth, actually worked with a number of key influential financial figures to find Dimensional over 40 years ago. Some of these people included really famous academics and perhaps some that you've studied with when you were in university. These include Professors Eugene Fama, Ken French, Myron Scholes, and Professor Robert Merton as well. And the basis of all these people finding Dimensional was that they were all interested in finding an excellent investment organization. So now, 40 years on, we now have about US $600 billion, or Korean won $780 trillion in assets that we manage on behalf of our clients. And that includes a lot of clients in Korea as well. We've been fortunate enough to manage money for Korean clients for about 7 years with the help and support of partners such as BNK Asset Management.
BNK자산운용이 출시한 TDF를 이 디멘셔널 펀드 어드바이저와 전략적 업무 제휴를 맺고 운영하고 있다고 알고 있습니다. 디멘셔널 펀드 어드바이저의 운용 철학은 제가 알고 있기로는 이 효율적 시장 가설에 기반을 두고 있다고 알고 있는데 TDF 운영 철학 또는 운용 스타일에 대해서 한번 말씀해 주실 수 있을까요?
Certainly. Yes, so efficient market hypothesis is very important to Dimensional. And in fact, it is associated with Professor Eugene Fama, who I mentioned is one of the founders of Dimensional going back. His theory and his research effectively points to markets being efficient in incorporating information when it's available. So what does that mean? So basically, stock prices already incorporate information as it comes out in the markets. That's actually a very simple concept to understand if you think of some examples. One example that comes to mind is basically last year we had a lot of market volatility. I had one of my friends who came to me and said, hey, Tesla is actually just recreating a new battery. And that's going to be really great for Tesla. We should invest money into the Tesla stock now. So that's a great example of an investment idea. The challenge there is that information is already priced into Tesla's stock price very quickly. My friend is a very smart person, but there are millions of other people looking at information. There are professional investors who look at information about Tesla and study that on a daily basis. So that information is incorporated very quickly into market prices. And that is what Professor Fama and others mean by efficient market hypothesis. We believe the best way of investing is actually through incorporating and understanding this information rather than trying to predict markets. So rather than trying to predict a stock price, or rather than trying to predict whether there's any future macroeconomic event or geopolitical risk, we believe it's better to have a long-term investment goal and an approach to achieving that goal. We do that by having a very diversified portfolio in the target date funds, both in equities and bonds, and by trying to harvest what we call our factors. So Dimensional has factors that we look at. There are three main factors. One is value investing. This is one of the most commonly known ways of investing, and it is made popular by Warren Buffett. What that effectively means is invest in cheaper companies than more expensive companies, and that's how you enhance your returns. Another factor is what we call profitability, or some people call it quality. So invest in high profitable companies as opposed to low profitable companies. That also enhances returns. And the third one is size. So we invest in smaller companies because smaller companies have a higher cost of capital and a higher return of capital to investors. So these three factors, as well as a very sophisticated implementation, allows us to outperform markets. And that's why for 40 years, our clients have had trust in Dimensional, and we've been able to grow our assets.
TDF 상품이 미국 퇴직연금 근로자들의 이런 수익률을 올리기 위해서 알아서 자산 배분을 해주는 이 똑똑한 펀드로 국내에 알려져 있는데요. 퇴직연금을 TDF로 운영하는 것에 대해서는 어떻게 생각하시나요?
Yeah, that's a good question. TDF indeed are very common in a number of markets like the US. In fact, they're a growing solution for retirement planning in many countries now. So it's a growing solution, including here in Korea as well, which we're very glad to see. The advantage of a target date fund is there are two advantages. One is it does incorporate important ideas around, and it's also designed for Korean investors, particularly the solution that we've developed. So it looks at retirement age, it looks at wealth accumulation goals, and we also look at regulations. So working together with BNK Asset Management, we've looked at the capital market regulations, we've looked at the pension supervision provisions as well, to make sure that we have a solution that meets Korean investor needs.
마지막으로 최근 이제 변동성이 심한 글로벌 금융 시장에서 전문가로서 좀 생각하시는 시장에 대한 전망과 그리고 저희 경남은행 퇴직연금 가입자분들을 위해 투자에 대한 조언을 좀 짧게 해주신다면 어떤 게 있을까요?
Sure. Market volatility is important. It's always there. Sometimes markets are more volatile, other times they're less volatile. Certainly in the past few months, and weeks, we've seen very heightened volatility. There is macroeconomic as well as geopolitical risks, which have real implications on investments. So we do look at those very carefully. You have things such as geopolitical risks with different countries and different nations at the moment, which are heightened. There are fears of high inflation and potential recessions that are also key risks. So, how do you manage this in terms of investments? Our philosophy, going back to efficient market theory, is that these risks are very quickly priced into securities prices, stock prices, bond prices. So it's important that whilst you think about these risks, you also think about your long-term objective and your allocation to risk as well. So from that perspective, Dimensional's philosophy is not to try to predict or forecast where these risks are coming from, but to use that information that's already priced into the markets to have a robust solution. So as we talked about in your previous question, with respect to volatility, when you think about investors depending on their lifespan, we add risk or we reduce risk depending on when they're retiring. Let me give you one example. So if you look at the US stock market as one market, you would have seen last year that the market was down 20%, almost 20% down for the US stock market last year. That can create a lot of fear in the minds of investors. And that can create fear of investing. It can create, people who might not invest for quite some time. But if you look on a 10-year basis for the US stock market, the returns on an annualized basis have been 12% per year for the past 10 years. That is annualized and compounded over 10 years. And this includes last year's downturn. It includes COVID crisis and other times where we've had market downturns and increased volatility. Despite all that, the US stock market has returned 12% per year annualized. That means for those investors, they would have tripled their money over a 10-year period without having to worry about specific risks or trying to find specific stocks or bonds. Just by staying invested in a relatively simple strategy, they would have increased their wealth.
끝으로 저희 경남은행 채널 구독자분들을 위해 한국어로 인사말 한번 부탁드려도 될까요?
Okay. BNK경남은행 TV 구독자 여러분, 안녕히 계세요.
안녕히 계세요.